this is what this is what I have to do when I'm shooting with Andrew Jones. I have to stand on a box.
Second squat.
Go. Right. Hi, this is Kevin Deal from Upscale Audio, and today I am here with Andrew Jones.
Hi guys.
Andrew Jones is the infamous Andrew, or the famous Andrew Jones, not infamous Andrew Jones.
Who you talk to.
Yeah, really. And he is going to help us introduce the Mobile Fidelity SourcePoint 10. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have him here. And this speaker, we went and heard it before their launch, and it bowled me over. I said, please, Andrew, come out and tell us about this speaker. So before we do that, I want you guys, for those that don't know, Andrew, tell us a little about what you've done in the past.
Well, quite a long history of 40 years of designing speakers professionally. I started out at KEF, moved over here to join Infinity, went to Pioneer, where I started TAD home audio, and then to ELAC, and now I'm with MoFi.
Yeah, and you know, while you've had the privilege of designing cost no object stuff, I think that what I dig about you is you've also been wanting to do things where people that don't want to spend $100,000 on a pair of speakers get performance that can aspire to that.
Yes, it started with that Pioneer speaker and continued after that.
Yeah.
And it's really fun doing that. It's just as much of a challenge to do a very affordable speaker. And you get the satisfaction of a lot more people can go out and buy that.
Right.
And I like getting the comments that I've given an entry point for people. I've cared about that price of speaker because we want to encourage more and more people to be getting good hi-fi and listening to good music. So.
And the other thing is you, like me, you dig dual concentric or single point source speakers or some types of coaxial drivers when you worked at Kevin, so on and so forth. I mean, we have a love for that, and there's a lot of benefits to that. One of them is the ability to place the speakers more easily, and especially in kind of crappy rooms. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally, and I've experienced that in my new listening room, that although if I sit on the nice big couch for the main listening, I can sit in the library section at the back, right at the back of the room, and still feel that the sound is really good. It's a less direct presentation, but it's still a really enjoyable, neutral presentation. And concentric type drivers are really good at that.
And I love the fact that you went with a 10-inch two-way because this thing has kick-ass bass but unbelievable mid-band. Now, don't forget though, I got to say something. If you end up getting a pair from us, make sure you check the box to get our Masters Setup program, because even though these are super easy to get amazing sound, we want you to get not 95% of the sound, we want you to get 100% of what's available to you. So make sure that you check the box and talk to our salespeople about it. So why don't you tell us about the speaker and what you put inside?
Well, it was, as you say, it's a departure for me doing, first of all, a two-way concentric. I'd always said the best two-way is a three-way, and particularly with concentrics because you don't want them moving too far. So when you're doing a smaller concentric, it's difficult to avoid that if you want bass. So I've always gone to a three-way system. And by crossing over, it excludes the bass from that driver. There's no real resultant movement. But there's a penalty in complexity. When we were starting out with this design, one of the wishes from MoFi, just very broad wishes, there was no you need to do this, it was we want you to do what you want to do. But one wish was good impactful bass. And then the other was these bigger boxes that are in vogue right now, the mid-century modern kind of thing. Well, that goes hand in hand because they were always big woofers. So that solves the bass. So I thought, well, if I've got a big woofer, could I then make that a concentric? Obviously, like I said, there's precedent with Tannoy back from the 50s, and it can be done. I hadn't done it, but it can be done. And the advantage of once you get the woofer big enough, the movement required most of the time is very small. So that became within the requirements of what I felt I needed to do the kind of concentric I wanted. But then employing all the techniques I normally use with the type of soft dome tweeters I use, but it did require a whole new magnet design to couple, to get enough strength in each of the pieces, because everything has to fit inside the voice coil rather than around it or behind it.
And that really blew me away when he showed us the driver, because you are doing something that I don't think I've seen in home audio before. In the magnet structure. I don't want you to give away secrets or anything.
Well, I'd learned this partly as a byproduct when we were doing the KEF Uni-Q, that as you put the tweeter onto the magnet pole, the fluxes couple together a little and alter the apparent sensitivity of the tweeter and the woofer. So I was thinking, could I make that, rather than a byproduct, could I make that a main part of it, in order that both magnets couple together through both gaps and strengthen each other? And very difficult to assemble, because you have to magnetize before you assemble, and factories hate doing that. But managed to do that, and it gave me the increase in flux I needed. It also linearized the motor assembly, so I get super low modulation distortions. So it was, surprisingly, the driver costs more than that whole cabinet, which is not normally the case. Normally the single most expensive part of a system is a cabinet, especially when it's such a solid cabinet as this one.
And you're not using ferrite.
No, it's all neodymium.
Right, and that's what tripped me out. But I got to tell you, the rubber, you know, who cares about that? It's like, where does the rubber meet the road? And the bottom end was unbelievable. And Kat, come over here. Just stick your head in the video. Kat wanted to be in this video in a way. I mean, because she was like, what music were we playing? Pick me, pick me. What were we playing? What was the music?
Converting vegetarians.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Infected mushroom.
Infected mushroom. Okay. I don't know who the hell that is, but I was impressed. And thank you. There, now you got to be in the video. Anyway, and what had shocked me was that this does sound like a stand mount, so the speaker disappeared. I mean, the physicality wasn't there, and that's always what we're shooting for, is to not hear a speaker there and a speaker there. We're looking for a single, for an image, right? But then the bottom end was, I don't know how you did it out of a cabinet this size. Do you want to tell us about the cabinet, maybe?
Well, the cabinet is a very solid construction. Because of having engineered the driver, you don't want to mess up its performance by putting it in the cabinet. And often, the edges of the cabinet, they always disrupt the sound, and so how do you minimize that? And in the past, like with TAD, I've done, if you sweep the cabinet backwards away from the driver before you get to the edge, then that improves the diffraction performance. And you can do that either with a continuous curve, like I did with TAD, or you can do faceted, like with this one. And although faceting isn't new, I didn't invent it, I came up with the shapes I needed for this particular driver. So that helped the diffraction performance. But then to give it the mid-century modern style, just adding a simple picture frame around it gives it that nice transition between old and new. And yet, because this is now set back from the front of the baffle, it has much less impact than if it was projecting forward from a flat baffle. So it satisfied both aesthetic and the technical details.
And when we're talking about diffraction, what we're talking about is the cabinet, in essence, reacting with the music, right? And you can demonstrate that yourself if you want to hear, what they always talk about here, right? And kind of a cupped hands, it's the reaction of what is around the driver. So he came up with this shape after a lot of experimentation, right?
But to make it, it means the material is 2-inch thick.
Wow.
So that's a very solid front baffle.
Wow.
And then the rest of the cabinet is 1-inch panels for every surface, and then 2 vertical braces in addition in there. So it's
fully
very
braced.
solid. The whole cabinet weighs 46 pounds.
Yeah. Now, while we're talking about this diffraction thing, what is with this grill design? Because there's a lot to it, right?
So we wanted to keep the idea of this baffle shape, but tone it down a little bit, because there's always
I don't know if I'll get this on properly.
Grill on, grill off. And this is magnetic, so it just
Okay.
drops in.
Okay.
So you can see it still has the faceting, but because it's a matte finish, because it's cloth, it just tones it down, removes the edge, so it looks quite nice with it on.
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure that this whole front area is totally open, and it has surprisingly little effect on the sound.
Yeah, because sometimes grills can really screw things up. That's why people always want to take them off.
Yes.
But this one has been designed properly, and I love it. Now, what about how hard is it to drive this speaker? I mean, what's the sensitivity of it?
Well, that's the advantage of going to bigger boxes. You've always got this compromise between bass extension, efficiency, and box size. So it's a 2 cubic foot nearly. So it's allowed me to get 91 dB sensitivity, at the same time keeping the impedance to a real 8 ohms. So it's not one of these 8 ohm compatible where it still drops to 3 ohms. It minimum is 6.4 ohms, and that's around 150 hertz. The rest of the way, it's above 8 or 10 ohms. So both easy to drive, and also makes it much more compatible with tube amplifiers, because it has much less interaction with the source impedance of the tube amplifier. So it maintains its frequency response much better with that.
So Prima Luna owners, this is going to rock your world, right? I mean, we sell a ton of Prima Luna amps or Pathos. I mean, just we have a lot of products that will work really, really well with the speaker, and we're going to be for all of our salespeople are going to have this speaker in their home, so they're going to really know what they're talking about, because we always want to make sure that we do know what we're talking about at Upscale Audio. God damn.
In fact, on the last day of the Cattle Show, we switched out to a 45 watt per channel tube amplifier. And when we swapped out, first thing I wanted to do is test out the bass performance. And it was still pounding the bass. So that sensitivity is paramount in trying to get that kind of performance.
Yeah. Now, Kat, when we were over in your listening room, she ran over and wanted to grab the speakers and turn them sideways, and they looked really cool like that. I mean,
that's the advantage of a concentric driver, and particularly when it's a simple two-way, orientation doesn't matter. The response in all directions off axis is pretty much uniform, and so you can lay it on its side with no problem. And we've in fact made a little stand, a tabletop stand, or to go on top of the speaker stand, that allows it to be cradled properly when it's on its side. And it looks, to me, it looks cool that way, but it also means it's good for center channel use. You combine the sensitivity and the size of the driver, it makes an excellent high-end home theater speaker.
Yeah, you could run three of these across the front.
Exactly.
It would be
and
amazing.
also if you're putting on top of a mixing desk, for example.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did we miss anything else?
It is vented. And I have no fear of venting speakers. And if you hear all the comments back about the bass performance, some people will always say, oh, vented speakers, they're slow in the bass. Yeah, well, try and listen to this one. So it's two vents, one at the top, one at the bottom.
Yeah, and that bass response really has a lot to do with the magnet structure and then this cone, because I know there was a lot of magic that went into that. Well, I don't want to call it magic, but
everything.
I don't want to give away the stuff that we learned about when we were in your listening studio. There was a lot that went into this surround and then this cone material.
I had to custom tool the cone, the surrounds, all the magnet forgings. So there's a lot of work to get there, with the promise, hopefully, that it was going to work by the time I'd spent all the money on tooling it up. Talking about magic, the magic moment was when I put it all together and listened to it and go, ooh, there's something here.
I don't go for magic at Upscale Audio. What do I always tell you on this channel? Parts and engineering, that's what it always comes down to, and that's why this speaker, we've already sold bunches of them before we've even gotten them in. By the time you see this, we should have a stock available. God, I cannot tell you, I am so happy to have Andrew Jones here. I just got done with my knee surgery. I said, I don't care. I'm going in, I'm hurting like hell right now, but I don't care, because it's such a thrill to be here and such a thrill to hear this speaker again. I want to thank Andrew Jones, Call us at Upscale Audio, go to our beautiful 10,000 square foot store, or talk to my non-commissioned salespeople. I promise you, we will treat your system like it's ours. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Kevin.